So we're looking to try to capitalize on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just have a comment about Golden Rain, the street standard in our code requires sidewalks to be property tight as opposed to curb tight. I can see on one of the drawings here
Well, that was from
the neighbors.
Yeah, neighbors.
I know, but it's helpful to look at it because I think that's probably the direction the design team's going to get is do the sidewalk property tight. And what that means is that there's more trees that will have to come out because there's going to be more landscaping closer to the house than closer to the road. So, I mean, this is one of the things that I, hope to discuss when we talk about engineering standards, and there's flexibility in the code, and so I would, this is more of a comment than a question. I would really rather see sidewalks curb tight here. I built one of the projects that someone complained about on Poplar, the 7-unit project, and we were forced to put sidewalks property tight, and it just didn't work out very well. I don't want to go into it. We had to take out a ton of trees and a ton of rock, and people felt that they could walk right up to the front doors of those people's homes. So it's actually, I think, socially not even a good idea. So anyway, that's just a word on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. So yeah, the code also allows for flexibility to avoid obstacles, avoid trees.
Yeah.
And so there is flexibility within the code
Yeah.
to meander the sidewalk. We will traditionally try to get it further away from the road so it's a safer condition. But if there's a need, we can certainly meander it, and there's examples of that all over town.
Yeah. I mean, it's a neighborhood road, so people will be going 10 miles an hour.
Golden Rain and Atwood are the two axes.
Yeah, Golden Rain's a good example. There's 60 feet of right-of-way there, but it functions as if there's about 30. And everybody's, if we fully encapsulized all 60 feet, you're right, we would be halfway into people's driveways.
Yeah.
So we're not looking to do that. I don't think that's what they're proposing to do. We'd be happy to figure out a way within that 32-foot pavement section. Then you'd have curbs, then you'd have the sidewalk. So we're not looking to get all the way out to the curb or
To the right-of-way.
to the right-of-way line. Yeah.
Okay.
It would be nice to talk about the commercial too.
Well, I don't know if I can make a comment on that just in deliberation, since having been through a few of these before. I just want to make the point that it is extremely difficult to speculatively build commercial before the neighborhood is complete, before the roofs are there with the people that are going to buy the things or the services that you're selling. So I totally understand not having an exact idea of what commercial is going to go there yet, but it's also going to depend on the market timing of when this neighborhood is complete, so that the folks in the neighborhood there are enough of them to support that commercial activity. It's sort of the same thing with the transit. You have to have the people there to make it work. So, and also, we have examples around town of this type of commercial kind of sitting for a while, and that is because of the market viability of it. So I think as we're building more, this is more urban form than our past master plans. Some of them that I've seen have come through, and I think that it's helpful to have the amount of people that are going to be in this neighborhood to support commercial, and so I'm really hopeful that it's actually going to come up a bit quicker than maybe some of the other ones we've seen. But that's just the perspective I wanted to offer you, on making sure that it gets built.
Yeah, so, and my perspective is that, there's definitely money to be made in residential and housing. And so, when developers come in and just build the housing and then say, oh, we can't make the commercial work, oh, well, it's like, well, couldn't you? How much profit was there in the residential housing? It feels as though the wealth has all been extracted from the land, and then you get a weed patch that the community gets frustrated with, and then it ends up getting developed as housing at the end of the day, and commercial never really happens. So I think it is our role as local government to kind of impose on developers the expectation that you have to make it work. You have to find a way and find some development partners and find some businesses that are going to work there. And I will say the city is going to start looking at economic development a little bit more closely. So hopefully there's a role that we can play there. But I think the development team here is, before us asking for a change to the comp plan, and that's a big ask. I like what I see. It's great. I mean, it's what our community needs. But I think it is our opportunity and our obligation as elected leaders to advocate for.
What would you propose that we do to actually make the commercial happen? I'm not.
You could require it to be built as part of phase 3. You could require a bond pulled for it.
But what to be built?
Well, whatever, that's up to the developer. The developer came up with housing that that they feel is viable to build, and
That will have a market value and people will want it.
Right. So
I guess part of what I don't think our role is to say a pizza parlor goes there or a childcare goes there, or that's a level of control that I don't think we have or can put into a development agreement. So I don't understand how there would be a viable code provision that says you need to build commercial, but we don't explain what that is. It's a zoning designation with allowable uses in it, and because it's zoned that way, they can build any of those allowable uses, right?
Or something that can accommodate with tenant improvements, various uses.
Right, yeah, so I don't see a way that we can specify exactly what needs to be built there, other than it needs to be CL, and it needs to be in the list of things that can be built in CL, right?
I mean, it's like saying you don't know what high density residential looks like.
Well, we have it though, exactly what that's going to be, how many units, how many people, right?
I would suggest saying that the commercial should be developed, that a plan should be developed for the commercial, and that it should be included in phase 3. I don't know. It could be negotiated, but it needs to be included in one of the phases. I just don't think that it's appropriate to say nothing needs to happen there.
Have we ever done that before?
No.
Do you know if other communities have done that?
I do not, off the top of my head.
I mean, I guess the hard thing about that is you can imagine seeing if we hypothetically were to somehow require commercial first, but you would have the existing neighborhood customer base, but a business would have a really hard time waiting until the rest of the neighborhood gets built out, right?
Yeah, and I actually said whatever phase, the development team wants to propose. I just don't think it's appropriate to say that a portion of land is just not their responsibility, not gonna be developed. Because that hasn't worked. I mean, we've just seen it fail, and it just really disappointed members of our community. So
I think it has worked, but I think it's been on a long time scale.
Yeah.
People don't understand how long it takes. Northwest Crossing has an incredible commercial area that was not there within the first 5 years, right?
First 10 years.
Not even. So I get the frustration that it can take a while, but I don't think I would support a specific phasing for that because of the reasons I stated about the viability of commercial. And you need a private business to want to do it. And if there's no private business that wants to come in there, but we say you had to build something, that doesn't make sense to me.
well, what commercial developers typically do is they'll build some facilities with some certain services for businesses that they target for that. So they might put in a sewer water or a grease interceptor if they think it's going to be a restaurant business, and it's how
Yeah,
commercial
building on
development
spec,
works.
there's a lot of risks to that. And so I guess I'm not interested in forcing someone to take the risk of building spec commercial without knowing if there's going to be a business there. That's just my position.
But I think you're making a valid point around, because this has been very disappointing across the community. I get that, but I think the point we've made about Northwest Crossing and like the sequencing of these things and when they become commercially viable, and the stories I've heard about Northwest Crossing, about the amount of subsidy they did for some of the businesses that were originally in there, to kind of try to make there be some there over time. I mean, there finally is real there, and it supports itself, right? But I'd be very interested in finding out, like, what else have other communities done? Mm-hmm. What approaches have they taken on this question, if any, to actually move it forward and be able to look at it in the future?
I think one tool, I think a lot of it is just getting the project to pencil, and as we talked about in the Urban Renewal Agency meeting, we have options with use of tax increment financing, and that may be something that you look as you evolve that program to look at incentivizing commercial.
Commercial limited, this kind of neighborhood commercial.
Yeah, I think there's other tools to get at it
Tiny step
besides.
approach.
Yeah.
for-
I like that idea. Yeah.
All right. Any more discussion? We can get some motions. We can
Does
deliberate on
anybody
those.
else have
I want to make the point related to what Councilor Riley made, which
Okay.
was just so one of the letters that we got a lot of emails on this, and one of the emails, one of the quotes that stood out is, "We cannot assume that infrastructure will magically fall into place later." I couldn't agree more, and the two things that I want to make sure that we don't lose track of are I do want to see I want to make sure that we don't lose track of traffic calming and sidewalks on Ponderosa and Poplar. Currently, Ponderosa is a collector, but that would be a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. I think that's too high. I get that it's currently posted as 25. So I don't think that needs to hold us up now, but I do want us to commit to addressing those. And if there is interest in either reallocating some of the exactions to provide more sidewalk connectivity and traffic calming in that area, I would be supportive of that. And then the second one is something that Councilor Riley mentioned earlier. I also want to make sure that we commit to pursuing connectivity to Rocking Horse Drive, because if this was not for the jurisdiction of the county and the city interface, and I understand there's also the importance of upholding people's private property rights. I don't want to lose sight of that as an egress route in the case of an emergency. So those are the two things that I want to put on the table.
I think what I would suggest, I have an idea about that, but I'd like to get through, since that's not directly related to these motions, right?
Okay,
If we can
thank
get
you.
through those, and then I want to propose something around that, but I think.
Sounds good.
It sounds like there's support on exploring that more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
There's nothing else we have to amend to allow the flexibility for the use
On
of
that
the
pot of money
dollars.
for.
Correct.
No,
Right.
we don't, because it's all the same
It's in the
corridor we're talking
code.
about.
All right.
Okay, great.
There is some flexibility in the code.
Yep. Okay, I think we're ready for some motions.
I move for the first reading of the ordinance amending Chapter 2.7 of the Bend Development Code to adopt the Ponderosa Master Plan Development and amending Bend Comprehensive Plan Policy 11-116.
I will second.
All right, moved and seconded on the first of our two motions. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Next.
I move for the first reading of the ordinance annexing approximately 42 acres in the southwest urban growth boundary UGB expansion area.
Second.
All right, motion and second on the next motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. You're never gonna guess what I proposed. It's a letter. It's a letter to the county about that road.
Around the emergency.
And about the access to it. I don't know if that would help to kick off some further discussions, but I think what I would like to do, again, in the vein of capturing everybody's input here, is to pass on some of these concerns, and to say, look, we found this sort of maybe temporary solution with the emergency gate, but we'd like to work on a longer-term solution for connectivity in that area, and kind of that helps give direction to staff that that's what we want them to work on, is how do people feel about that, as far as that connection on the south part, as far as just getting that going.
Yeah.
As a starting point,
Yeah.
it sounds great.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think, yeah, not sure what else we can technically do, right? I mean, it's private
Right.
property, it's county-owned, it's outside our jurisdiction. So
It's one step further than just saying, hey, Russ, work on
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
sort of
right.
like, let's put our weight
Yeah.
behind it a little bit, if that's okay with, that was just an idea. I'm open to other ideas if we want to direct staff on that. Okay?
Yeah, and then just, maybe this is a question for Ryan. The neighborhood street safety program, because I think there's some smaller things that one is like the next round of that, because I think some of those might be opportunities for some of the things we've heard tonight.
Yeah, we've actually gone through the selection process
Yeah.
for roughly the next 3 to 4 years worth of
Yeah.
neighborhood street safety work, which takes us through the remaining $8 million from the GEO bond. So there's a larger question that we would love to talk about, is how do we continue
Got it.
that? And it's more of a funding issue. But I mean, we can always amend the current project list, because some of them are still not even in design yet. So if you're interested in doing that, we can come back to the conversation if you feel there's a high need for
Okay.
something through there.
And
do it
the
right now.
Southwest neighborhood district, and I just emailed and said that that's something, a conversation that maybe we could have at their neighborhood meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
And so what about the dollars for the proportionate share? That
Is there
400
interest
and
from a
whatever it is?
majority of staff in just exploring how those could maybe be used for that sidewalk work instead of the roundabout? I mean, I still want more information about the trade-offs of that,
Yeah,
for
I mean,
sure.
Same.
I understand.
So, but I'm interested in looking at that for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. As Russ was saying, it's given the complexities of the existing conditions out there. There's no sidewalk to build behind, so Are we cutting the existing asphalt, putting a curb in and sidewalk right behind it? Are we doing an off-network kind
Yeah, we need to figure
of?
out
So that
that.
we gotta look through those different options and figure out how to minimize impacts to the properties through there.
And the combination of, what can we get done with the dollars that we have?
Yeah.
And what kind of gaps does that leave? And to fill in the gaps, it would take X amount more.
Yeah, we need that.
I think we need both of those pieces.
Yeah, we need to do a full, I mean,
Okay.
I know the AKS's estimate's probably fairly accurate, given the concept we shared, we
Yeah.
told them to review and put an estimate together, but that might not be the concept we want.
And-
I'd like it to consider using the Stillwater dollars as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
that would
that's-
require
that's
change,
fine.
but we could always do that. Yeah, I do.
We'll investigate.
Yeah, I would love it investigated. I do also want to point out there are a lot of other places in town with missing sidewalks, right? And I'm still pushing for that sidewalk master plan that's in our
Yes.
TSP.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all of that is a programmatic approach, but until we're there, I think addressing these as they come up is okay too. But I just want to make sure we're
Yes.
thinking big as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, this development has a significant impact and change for this part of
Yeah.
town that I think
Makes
is
sense.
quite stark. It's important for us that there's an opportunity to find ways to minimize some of the livability issues that are very real and are coming up. And especially ones that are safety oriented. I think that's, a big part of what we're trying to do is make our transportation safety improved, especially for families that are trying to get kids to school.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. All right. Thank you, staff. That will conclude items 5 and 6. We have just a few items left for tonight, but thank you everyone for your
welcome to
patience.
stay, everybody.
Thank you for the citizens for all the public comment and input. All right, so we are moving on to item number 7. I've got Brooke here.
Is the adoption of a resolution authorizing condemnation of property for the construction of Yeoman Road from Purcell Boulevard to 18th Street.
And folks, if you're having conversation, if we could take it outside, we're trying to get through the rest of this hopefully before 11. Would be great. Like to go home? Okay. All right, Brooke, go ahead. Oh, Mike's getting a chart. One second.
Everybody's present.
Yeah. Can we start?
Musical interlude.
Okay, I think just start. Brooke. Okay, here he comes. Go ahead.
Debbie Downer.
I know.
Councilors, Mayor, I'm Brooke Olson. I'm with the City Attorney's Office. The resolution before you in item number 7 seeks to declare an easement to be necessary for the construction of Yeoman Road from Purcell Boulevard to 18th Street. This is in Northeast Bend. It is in the city limits and in the UGB. The resolution will also authorize the city to acquire this necessary easement through eminent domain. A brief overview of eminent domain. It's a constitutional principle that allows the government to take private property for public use. It's also known as condemnation, and the critical element is that just compensation has to be paid to the private property owner. To explain the necessity of the necessity of the condemnation here, I'll give a brief background about this easement and why it's necessary. The Petrosa Master Plan requires construction of this segment of Yeoman Road and other sections, but here we're talking about between 18th and Purcell. It needs to be constructed to a modified collector standard due to the transportation impacts that the Petrosa development has on the area. Polish Homes is the developer of the Petrosa Master Plan, and Polish, as such, is completing the Yeoman Road construction as a condition for its next phase of development at Petrosa. After the construction of the road is complete, the city will take ownership of it, so it will become public infrastructure. Now, the easement subject to condemnation is located on private property just north of Yeoman Road and east of 18th. The easement is necessary to construct the roadway because the roadway is at a slightly higher elevation than the surrounding properties, and this easement is necessary to support the roadway as it becomes complete. Since the master plan requires Polish to construct the roadway, it is Polish's responsibility to obtain the necessary property interest to make that happen. Polish has used its best and good faith efforts to acquire this easement from the property owner. Unfortunately, it's been unable to do so. Because it's the city's master plan that requires Polish to construct the Yeoman roadway, and because the city will take ownership of the road after it's finished, the city has deemed the exercise of eminent domain to be appropriate here. Fundamentally, the easement is necessary to complete this public infrastructure project. And since the Yeoman roadway construction is Polish's responsibility, Polish has agreed with the city in a separate agreement to reimburse the city for all costs incurred in this condemnation proceeding, including the costs of just compensation and legal fees. As far as next steps go, with the council's adoption of this resolution, the city will be in a position to file a condemnation action for the easement. And importantly, the adoption of the proposed resolution will enable the condemnation proceeding. It will not mandate it. So we'll be in a position to file if we ultimately deem it necessary.
Okay. Any questions for Brooke on this?
Yeah, I had asked to see the road section. I don't know if that's here.
The road section subject to construction here?
You mean the map, like where it's going to be on the map?
No, so the section of the road. So how wide will it be? Where will the sidewalk? I assume there's going to be a sidewalk and a multi-use path and all of that.
Is that in the Petrosa master plan, Wes?
Probably.
Yeah.
I can talk through it.
My question is, it's similar. I mean, even to Golden Rain is like, do we have to acquire this land? Because it's zoned residential, right? So when we use eminent domain and acquire land and bring it into the right of way, then that's less land that's available for housing to be built on it, basically, or anything else, really.
Which land are we talking about?
It's a sliver of land. I think it runs between 15 to 20 feet.
15 to 20 feet.
Yeah.
On an existing property with an existing house on it. So this is right off of 18th. It's
Yeah,
between
it just
18th
connects
and
Yeoman
the
and 18th
canal.
over.
Yeah.
It is I forgot if it's a collector or a chair road, but it's a major roadways system that we worked. I was involved in the negotiations with Polish when Petrosa came through. It was a needed corridor that is not built now. So Yeoman goes by Pine Nursery, and as part of the impact of the development of Petrosa, we are making them build that road all the way through. They are getting SDC credits for that. It is on our SDC list because it is a major system-wide improvement. So how we look at it is when they make these decisions, they do analyze, should we build a wall, should we get a slope easement, all those type of things. But we are building it to a certain city standard as if it was a capital project done by the city. Because it either gets built one of two ways. The developer builds it, we give them SDC credits, or the city would actually build that sometime in the future. It made sense for the developer to build it as part of the development because of the direct impact of that. They did analyze what would be a cheaper solution. It's a standard road section for a collector road. There is a buffer there is a landscape strip between the curb and the sidewalk. We specifically do want that here because this is a collector-sized road. That's where we wanted to provide safety of getting. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, I can jump on.
Yeah, why don't you share that? To make sure that we can, one, have safety of a buffer for pedestrians, but also we have a place to put snow and snow removal because this is one of those higher priority roads where snow removal would happen more often. Ryan's going to share the road section on this. There's also, this is right by the COID canal, so there's other concerns about walls and things like that. I just want to let council know that we did look at it. I did have conversations with ACAS of how did you come to this determination? Did you analyze the wall? If we did put a wall there, we would still need a slope construction easement and a slope easement after that. So the most economical solution to that is to acquire slope easements. Ryan can talk about how we typically do this on CIP projects in the same type of scenario. So we did vet it different ways, but this is kind of the normal way that we build these type of roads. And Ryan can share the section. Yeah.
Eventually, is Yeoman going to also connect to the east?
Yeah, so
to Butler Road and eventually to Butler Market?
Yes, and so they're actually building both sections right now. So they're making this connection from Purcell to the east or to the west to get to 18th. That's part of their requirements. And then you jump all the way up to Deschutes Market, and they're building Yeoman, which doesn't exist at all between Deschutes Market and
Yeah.
where Butler Market does that
Right.
kind of crazy
Yeah.
hook right there. Because we really wanted to provide circulation and get another way of connectivity to get people moving east-west in that area.
And that whole road to the east, for Yeoman, all the way east of Deschutes Market to Butler Market is gonna be built to the same urban standard.
Except
on
for
the
that
south
section
side.
next by Pine Nursery, but we are working with the county right now to do a jurisdictional transfer of that because it's basically city, county, city. We agree that the city should take that road over. It's right on the border of our UGB to make maintenance consistent through there. We don't have any funding to build that road. It was kind of outside the scope of the Petrosa master plan, but it's an existing county road that will provide the connectivity that we need. And there's a path, there's an already multi-use
Yeah,
path
I
that's
see
running
that.
on the side of Pine Nursery.
Okay.
I
Great.
disagree with I mean, I think as moving the sidewalk close to the curb prevents us having to use the eminent domain process, and it's not just even the land; it's like the staff time to go through it and all of that. So, but I
We're
sense our mayor's interest in moving our meeting along,
No,
so we
if
don't
you
have
have a
to.
question, we can get it answered.
We're hoping we
Fine.
don't have to use this. We got actually asked by Polish, in conversations with the property owner, they wanted us to start the proceedings. They did do their best faith efforts to get it. We're hoping this actually moves that negotiation back to the table. This typically is what happens, is like, we can say, yes, we will use eminent domain if we need to, and we'll condemn it. Hopefully, we can use that to actually have them come to agreement and get this done.
And there's language in the resolution, which is pretty standard for us, directing staff and city's agents to continue attempting to agree with the owner of their property to acquire the interest. So
We try to do that.
This is
yeah.
the framework. We keep trying, and there's direction to continue trying and only do this as a last resort.
I'm trying to stall just enough for, put it up on the
Oh,
screen.
Is the expectation that it would be a roundabout at 18th?
Yes.
At some point, not with this development. The trigger for the roundabout was not met. We were just gonna have a standard T intersection there at this particular moment in time.
Yeah.
with that development.
But I sense in Councilor Franzosa's hesitance it sounds like it's a kind of a standards and specs question.
Well, yeah.
And maybe if we, I mean, I'm sympathetic as well, and I feel like, well, I worry about this for, I think, a slightly different reason, but I think also ultimately a standards and specs reason. So I'm not opposed to the eminent domain aspect of it, but I do worry about the loss of what is essentially a pretty well-used modal filter. You can't drive through this area, but it's a really nice, pleasant place for people to walk and bike.
It is on our TSP to make those connections.
So,
One thing that Ryan's just showing, we do bring it in when we build bridges. You do notice the sidewalks come in directly next to the curb when we cross the CYD canal because of the cost of the bridge,
Yeah.
of the bridge construction. But again, we do want to make sure that we do have those kind of, for just level of stress, we do encourage collectors and arterials to move the sidewalks back, and then we do need a place to put the snow when we get snow events on those major roads. That's the rationale of why we have those landscape buffers in there.
Yeah. Okay.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the exercise of eminent domain to acquire property necessary for the construction of Yeoman Road from Purcell Boulevard to 18th Street, and authorizing the city manager to take steps necessary to implement the resolution.
Second that.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, on to item 8.
Council's asked to adopt a resolution authorizing issuance of up to $105 million of full faith and credit bonds.
Good evening, Mayor Council, Chief Financial Officer Samantha Nelson. I'm here to ask for the approval for the $105 million full faith and credit obligation bonds. These is to reimburse the city for projects that are currently already underway and in construction. Predominantly, this is the Public Works Campus, as well as some transportation infrastructure. We have some stormwater infrastructure projects as well as earlier as we discussed, the borough approved capital projects as well, as we're making a loan to the borough to fund those projects.
All right, step 2 of the earlier. Borough, and additional.
I move to adopt a resolution to authorize the issuance, sale, execution, and delivery of full faith and credit bonds in an amount not not to exceed $105 million to fund and reimburse the city for the costs of transportation infrastructure improvements, stormwater infrastructure improvements, acquiring vehicles and equipment, funding capital projects, loaning funds to the Bend Urban Renewal Agency for eligible capital improvement projects, and refunding all or a portion of certain outstanding obligations of the city and Bend Urban Renewal Agency if feasible.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this one? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Last item, number 9. Last and the best, though.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the happy stuff.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that, but.
Oh, I beat you to it, I'm sorry.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me before you tonight. Let me just share my presentation here real quick. I am Melissa Camagna, your Affordable Housing Coordinator, and it's my honor tonight to be here to present to you the Affordable Housing Fund recommendations of 2025. There's $2 million available in the Affordable Housing Fund, and $2.7 million was requested over 5 applications. And this graphic shows the recommendations that are before you tonight. So there's $550,000 for Thistle and Nest. Ben Redmond Habitat for Humanity had 2 applications, which I'll explain in just a moment, but each are recommended to receive $150,000. Housing Works is recommended for $300,000 and Home First Development $850,000. Just a quick overview of the projects. For Thistle and Nest, this is their Woodhaven Estates project. Funding will be used for the construction of 10 units of affordable homeownership at Woodhaven Estates. These will be owner-occupied, shared wall townhome style units. They use a land lease to ensure affordability is permanent, and they will serve households between 30 and 100% AMI. This is the first Habitat project that we'll talk about. This is for the Northwest Cottages land acquisition. This is the 12th and final lot at their Northwest Cottages development. These are owner-occupied cottages that will serve this lot in particular will be for 100% AMI or less. And this project was completed during COVID-19. The first 11 lots were 2021, 2022. The second Habitat project is what they're calling the Taft buyback. So this home that you see before you was built in and sold in 2004. This is a recapture project, or if you will, or it's to preserve housing. If they are not able to buy this home back, it gets lost into the market rate housing. So their idea is to incorporate this property into their community land trust, where it will be maintained in perpetuity for affordability up to 80% AMI. Housing Works East Lake Rehabilitation Project. This is also a preservation project where they are proposing efficiency upgrades to their 22-year-old East Lake Village development. Specific upgrades for this project include a complete overhaul of the landscaping system to drip irrigation and using solar. And this is 56 units that serve renters between 30 and 80% AMI. The last project I feel like you're pretty familiar with because you heard a lot about it tonight. But Home First Development Atwood Apartments, as you know, it's 98 units. Something that wasn't talked about earlier that I would like to highlight is that part of their proposal is to serve families, seniors, and individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are at 80% AMI or less. And so part of this proposal is some set-asides for their partner, Advocates for Life Skills and Opportunity, to address some of those specific housing needs. If there's no questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Melissa? Always good work by our Affordable Housing Committee.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't see this conceptual site plan earlier. I guess that's what they're trying to.
Well, because it's at the
Kind of
site
match.
plan level, not the master
Yeah,
plan
yeah,
level,
yeah.
so I think they
Mhm.
wanted to avoid mixing those two up just for folks, but yeah, it is nice to see. We saw some renderings.
Yeah,
but not the
that
site
showed
plan.
some of this open space.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important that this is highlighted, because that's a really big need in our community and something that we don't often think about. And
In terms of who this is serving.
Yeah, the
Beyond the
clients,
AMI.
Right.
absolutely beyond the AMI, this is
Yeah, it's amazing.
really, really important.
Drummer supportive, yeah.
I move to approve the 2025 Affordable Housing Fund recommendation allocating $2 million to affordable housing projects and to authorize staff to take all actions necessary to fund the approved projects, including signing loan agreements and related documents without further approval from the council.
I second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks for sticking around.
Thanks for ending on a really positive note.
Yeah, city manager
I'll forego my
report
report.
deferred
Yeah.
to later.
I'll put any content in the weekly memo. Yes.
Yeah.
Please read it.
Yeah, great. Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.